No error this time. That's good.
Okay. Welcome to the budget meeting this evening. We'll call the meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Spagnaggity, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. First, I'll be looking for the approval of or amendments to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those contrary? Okay, motion is passed. We'll be looking for the approval of the minutes of the budget meeting held February 11th, 2025.
Move.
All those in favor?
Second.
Well, we need motion and seconder first.
I heard a move. Seconded?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any contrary? Motion has passed. Okay, the first item is the Sportsplex rental rates review with Alana Tapper and Scott Preston.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Council. This report, we're picking up where we left off on Tuesday night budget with East Hants Sportsplex. So this report is on the East Hants Sportsplex rates and fees. So some background, Council made the decision to transition to daily operations of the East Hants Sportsplex over to the municipality on May 15th. And as part of that transition, the council discussed and opted to keep rental rates the same until the municipal staff had the opportunity to establish new user group contracts and have a better understanding of the hours of use and rates. In October, council directed staff to come back in budget discussions where we are today. So as per the municipal fee policy, Council has the authority to set fees for the arena and turf rates at the East Hants Sportsplex. Staff heard from many user groups that they would like to see a discounted youth minor sport rate in place for ice rentals, similar to other facilities in the province. As part of staff's work, we reviewed different definitions and we've included them in this report today. So some of these definitions are prime, non-prime. We also defined seasons, so the regular season and summer season. And there's different definitions for the different user groups, such as youth or adult. And facilities across the province varied in how they define these terms. So for clarity, staff have included the definitions in this report, which I'll go through. So for arenas, we're defining the regular season as September 1st through to June 14th. Prime time hours, which really prime time means the most demanded time for bookings. And this is Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. to close, and all day, Saturday and Sunday. The non-prime hours are Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. through to 5 p.m. And summer season is considered non-prime hours from Sunday through to Saturday from open till close. Turf follows the exact same model. The only difference is the season date. So you'll notice for turf, the regular season starts November 1st and summer season ending October 31st. Going over some of the user group definitions, we've defined general users as rental users that are youth or adult members of the general public or adult nonprofit sport recreation groups. The youth nonprofit is a user group that is composed of 90% of the rental users being 18 years of age or younger, and that group is affiliated with a nonprofit sport and recreation group, such as East Hants Skating Club or East Hants Minor Hockey would be examples there. A new user group category we've created here is called a corporate user, which is really a user who's renting on behalf of a for-profit sole proprietor, business, or entity. So staff reviewed rental rates from comparator facilities in the province. We included a selection of facilities here, which I'll also go to Appendix B at the end of this report to kind of showcase a visual to better showcase the rates. But in summary, these rates show that that many facilities, I should say, have a subsidized rental rate for youth minor sport rentals. This data also shows that the East Hants Sportsplex is actually predominantly in line with other facilities, except that East Hants Sportsplex is considered the most expensive for youth prime time rentals. Out of the jurisdictional scan, HRM operated rinks, which include the Sackville Sports Stadium and the New Stadia operated rinks, the Greenfoot Energy Center and the Dartmouth RBC 4 pad, and the Rath Eastleigh Center in Truro both had discounted rates in place for youth minor sport rentals. Summer season is, varies amongst different arenas. We found in the scan that there wasn't a whole lot of consistency with user fees for summer ice. Some charge prime time all summer and some didn't. So East Hants staff are recommending that non-prime ice rental rate be charged during the summer and off season to encourage utilization, and that the standard rate for a dry pad surface, so an arena with no ice, at $75 plus tax is in line with the market. To go over turf rates, staff reviewed comparable facilities in the province, and while there's plenty of outdoor turf, there's very few indoor facilities that compare to the East Hants Sportsplex Dome facility. The only true comparable that we found was the BMO Center in Halifax. The West Hants Sportsplex does have one turf field, which equates to about a third of the turf size that East Hants Sportsplex has. And so the whole turf field is typically divided into thirds, and some users rent all 3 fields. In reviewing these rates around the province, it didn't appear that the youth rate was a common rate in turf fields, and therefore it wasn't recommended for turf. Staff have proposed some small changes to the non-prime fees for regular season rates and whole field regular season rates. And again, I'm going to go to the visual graph at the end to showcase the recommended rates amongst these rates a little bit better. But overall, there's some noteworthy changes to highlight. The price, the biggest one is the price reduction for minor sport organizations renting ice space during prime hours. There's a reduction there, which is significant. The non-prime rates for turf have decreased, and there was some small changes to the whole field prime time rates to align with the comparative market rates. Summer rates for field rentals have increased on average by 25%. When you see what that fee is, they were pretty low as they were, so it's bringing up a pretty marginal amount. But the regular season non-prime turf rates have reduced on average by 41%. When calculating a impact of budget, increasing and decreasing fees can have different impacts on utilization. If a fee is lowered, the goal and the idea is really that it has the potential to create more hours booked. So reducing non-prime turf rates that typically aren't booked that often may increase utilization and actually increase revenue. On the other hand, as you increase fees too high, you have the ability to deter bookings from happening. So you want to be careful in how much you raise a fee. And so staff have calculated and done some work on these fees to propose some marginal changes without forecasting any major impacts that would deter use. Finally, we spoke on the corporate user already, and with that comes a corporate rate. And what the corporate rate means is basically that a corporate user who's a sole proprietor or a business entity would be charged that high fee of the prime time rate, even for non-prime space, either through non-prime during the day or non-prime over the summer. that would be the corporate rate would essentially be the prime rate, which you'll see listed in the Appendix A, which lists all the fees. Lastly, staff are still recommending that council give CAO discretion to charge additional fees, and that could be cleaning or overhead fees. For instance, if a booking left a mess on the field or the ice, there would be some costs that we would be looking to recover. So we're recommending that council still give CAO discretion to charge those additional fees when necessary, or for particular events that don't fit within the fee model that's here today. So this report aligns with the strategic plan to promote inclusivity, community engagement, quality of life for all residents. The financial impact, as I spoke earlier, is not expected to negatively impact revenue, and the slight increases to turf should balance out with the decreases on the ice for Youth Prime. There's alternatives there that council may consider to not approve the recommended rates and maintain rates the same. Council may also approve alternate rates set by council or direct staff to conduct further analysis and come back with new rates. Before we go to discussion, I just wanted to again showcase the rates from this visual. So what you're looking at here in Appendix B is individual turf field rates. So like I said, the East Hants Sportsplex Dome is divided into 3 fields. And you can see here that currently East Hants is, and this is pre-tax, is $121.74. So we're looking to maintain that prime time rate for the individual turf rate rental, but decrease the non-prime rental to $40. And I'll explain that in a minute when we look at the summer rates. So for the summer season, East Hants is currently at $36.52. Again, the comparators there with BMO being 57.18 and 40, and West Hants being significantly higher. We've slightly increased that to match BMO's non-prime rate. And in terms of programming and clarity with our definitions for non-prime, we're matching our non-prime rate across the regular season through to summer. So that's why we're doing $40 across the regular season and through the summer to be consistent and also increase utilization for non-prime rentals for the turf, which are historically low through the daytime. In this next visual, you're looking at a full field rental, which is 3 turf fields all together. And the only comparator we had was the BMO Center. And you'll notice the BMO Center is significantly higher at $420 per hour. And this is pre-tax. And essentially means they don't do a discount. And currently in East Hants, we do a discount. It's $291.30 plus tax. So we're recommending a marginal increase of $320 to be a little bit closer to the comparator facility. Again, keeping consistent, we've matched BMO non-prime rate as our summer rate, so increasing summer slightly from 85.22 to 120, and then maintaining that as the non-prime rate through the regular season.
Okay. Is that everything?
Almost done.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
just gonna
sorry.
yeah, I just had to take a drink of water. Sorry.
No problem.
I'll just briefly go through these ice rental rates and show you the final appendix with the fees, and then we can go for questions. So this is the rates here amongst the other facilities. So you can see the East Hants Sportsplex is here in the middle, and the light blue color is the Youth Prime rental, which is the highest out of the comparable facilities. Going down to the next page shows the recommended rates against the current rates. And so we're recommending a youth minor sport rate of 178.68, keeping non-prime the same across the user groups, and a marginal increase of about $6 for the general user rate for prime time. And lastly, I'll just explain this fee table, which has the current fees here. So the recommended rates are showcasing here to start September 1st. We have the rates for approval today over the next 3 years. And through jurisdictional scan, we found it was best practice to increase rates by 2% per year to keep up with rising costs of inflation and other things. So the rates are posted there for 3 years at a 2%. Again, I'll remind everybody that these are pre-tax rates. We know there's might be some changes with HST coming April 1st, so these are listed as pre-tax. And I'll just go back to the report. And when we wrote this report and when we brought this report forward, we didn't have a recommended motion. And that was because we were going to give this for council to review today. And so that's why we don't have a recommended motion. Not saying there couldn't be a motion today, but we just wanted to recommend that if council approves these rates in principle today. So happy to go to questions now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. First to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. On the rink ice business, Don Henderson Memorial Sportsplex Brookfield was not in the comparison chart. I'm wondering why, because it's one of our closest ones. And so can somebody tell me on that?
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. We did review several facilities, and we did have that as one. We just didn't put it in the table. So Councilor Rhino, we could certainly bring that back. I would say that it's still those facilities were quite in alignment. Those were just the ones we chose just for simplicity of the graph.
Well, I guess for simplicity of the graph, I can hear what you're saying, but when you're doing a comparison, you reach out to the closest ones to you and you have that as a comparison first and then go from there. So I'm a little interested to see what their rates are in comparison. But having said that, you went back to that last table you had, and you had a 3-year rate and a 2% increase. I'm wondering why just a 2% increase? Why wouldn't you have that to CPI? Why wouldn't you tie that to something else? Because I'm thinking maybe if oil prices skyrocketed, electricity goes, whatever, we have the ability to adjust that rate. And once we pass this motion, or if we do when it's accepted, to go back and tamper with it after is a little, people can look at that with a little scorn. So I'm wondering if it's 2% is going to be adequate.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. A great question. We did jurisdictional scan and found that 2% was a common practice, understanding that CPI could be higher on some years. I know one year it was 8%. But that being said, the rates historically haven't changed for a long time, and we wanted to be careful with the impacts to users as well with some of these changes. So that's why we proposed a clear increase over the next 3 years to see that, and then we could revisit in 3 years, or we could come back if there was some big inflationary pressures that caused costs to significantly rise. We could certainly come back to council, I would think.
So kind of we would have what they call the interrupter clause in there. We could go in and adjust that accordingly, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Could you give me that information, or get all of us the information on the Don Henderson Sportsplex, please? Because I believe that your closest one, we should have kind of an idea what they're charging to. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Tingley.
Thank you, Chair. To Scott, so is it my understanding from reading this report that we expect that from an operations budget point of view, we're going to break even? We're going to match income with expenses with these rates?
Through you, Madam Chair. That's correct with the increases of the whole field turf rates, and it's expected to break it even with the increases. Yeah.
And was talking to the CAO about this, but I don't really understand the answer quite yet. Is your salary, any part of your salary shown as an expense to the Sportsplex yet?
Probably need the CAO to weigh in on that on how they, I guess, how we're doing the
I'm just
financial
wanting
piece
to make
this.
sure I understand all the expenses are
From the
in there.
budget side. Yeah.
Yeah,
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could. So when we have a service that's heavily paid for by an area rate, I think you've all seen those administrative fees and the allocations, and we get quite deep into allocating out costs related that are part of the general operations of the municipality, but that are paid for or related to another function. So, for example, if you look at one of Jesse's engineers, they get allocated out to the sewer and the water, and then some are operations, some are not, and it gets into that level of people who are paying for people. So in this case, we haven't started to do that yet because we've only about 8 months or 9 months into this, and we don't really know where it's going to settle out in the end. Also, we now have folks who are using office space at the Sportsplex that has helped us alleviate some room at our office. So that office space would be generally paid for on the general rate. So we've got to sort of figure out over the next year where people are spending their time and how much of it should be allocated to the Sportsplex. And that would include things like my time, Mike's time on insurance, IT, like all of those costs need to be figured out. We just don't know how that's going to shake out yet. This year, I can tell you, is not a normal year. You've had, hundreds and hundreds of hours allocated to this facility, and that's not how it's going to be from this point forward. So once we figure out what role our building folks are playing, what role Scott is playing, how much of his time is there, then we can come back to council with a recommendation on what those allocations look like. That would be something you would decide through your budget process. Of course, we would make the recommendation, but you would make that decision in your budget process once you know the settled lay of the land and how it all works.
okay. Well, I'm happy to hear if we think we're gonna break even operationally, but I still don't really understand the numbers because they're all over the place. The other comment I would make is I think it's great to do a comparison to the other arenas and Sportsplex, but we're not actually comparing apples and apples. Like if you compare our facility to the Don Henderson facility or to the Centennial rink in Halifax, the Centennial rink, I assume, was built in 1967, and I don't know when Don Henderson was, but we have to, I think we should try to operate based on our actual cost as far as the operations are concerned. Other than that, I have no comments. I'm happy to hear we think we're going to break even here on the operation budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Councilor Tingley asked a couple questions that I was interested in because especially understanding that we're not going to know what the full cost is probably till next year's budget, with all those items dealing with staff's time and trade-off of office space and all that stuff. So I'll be looking forward to that report coming next budget season, so we get a truer picture of the actual cost. I'm glad to see that the jurisdiction took into account things like other facilities that had a dome soccer field, but only 1/3 the size, which means their operational costs are going to be lower, which means, whatever they charge. So it's, I think the jurisdictional scan was done well. And overall, the biggest thing with these rates is it's important to make the users of the facility pay for the facility, because I really would not like to see a rate hike have to be put in if we can have the users who use the facility pay for the facility. And I'll leave it to the local area councilors to make the rate motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Yes, thank you. Just want a bit of clarification. There's no recommended motion, but I'm assuming you would be looking for a recommendation to include these rates in the budget?
Through you, Madam Chair, Alana has a motion she's going to put on the screen. So if you
I
want to
can do
put
that right
the
now.
screen now for discussion.
Yep. Okay, so there's a proposed draft motion. And we've included the chart as per what was in the report. And I also believe that Scott has the Don Henderson Arena costs listed as well at this point.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Keith Rhino's question, sorry, to Councilor Rhino's question, we do have the prime rate and the minor rate for the Don Henderson, prime being 205 taxes in, and non-prime 145, and the minor sport rate, they did have a minor sport rate of 195 taxes in, which are in alignment with the recommendations.
Are you looking that over, Warden, or?
No, I just wanted to know if we needed a motion. I'll let the area councilors weigh in.
Okay, next to speak is Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question through the staff. Looking at the information presented, it says, for example, 5 p.m. to closing. Scott, is closing the same each night of the week, or does it vary?
Through you, Madam Chair. Great question. It does vary throughout the regular season. That is typically 11 p.m. Summer has been different, and we're looking at summer hours. So we could end up doing closing at 9 p.m. throughout the summer based on historic usage. But we haven't set that firmly. But typically in the past, what's happened too is it's been closed once the last rental is in, but we are looking to standardize our closing times to help streamline our online booking model and everything like that. So if that
I think
answers your question, yeah,
it would also help staff to plan their days.
absolutely.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, based on everything I've heard, I'm going to move the motion that's there. Move the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend to council that council approve the list of recommended rates for the Easthant Sportsplex to be included in the draft 2025-2026 budget as outlined below, with the proposed fee increase beginning September 1st, 2025, increasing by 2% per year as of April 1st, 2026, and all fees listed as pre-tax and subject to HST.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Counselor Tingley, second by Counselor Merriam. On before the motion is Counselor Dixon.
I was going to second the motion and thank you, staff, for the report.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, seeing no one left to speak,
Question?
question's been called. We'll go to the vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold it, the screen just shifted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion has passed unanimously. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so is that everything for the Eastham Sportsplex presentation? Sorry,
Yes.
I'm just looking for the agenda here and I take it that the next topic is the Human Resources Report with Kim Ramsey.
That is true.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So councillors, the report is posted to your agenda. This was put together by Tracy and Ashley, our HR folks, in consultation with the organization and with our finance folks. So I'm going to take you through the report at a fairly high level. There's a lot of information in here. I'm not going to read you 27 pages of information, but we'll hit the highlights. I think it's important that you and the public understand sort of the massive human resource challenges that we have and the amount of people that it takes to deliver the services that are in your current strategic plan and your and this annual budget that you've got in front of you is you know, most of most of what we spend, if you look at sort of each of the budgets, we rely heavily on our people. So I think it's important that everybody understands, you know, the coming and goings of those people. And we have an amazing team here at East Hants. We've got a very strong corporate culture, and I think you'll see that throughout some of these numbers. It's reflected. So we have two human resource folks who work with the departments to do our recruitments and whatnot. This summer or this year, we had a lot going on, and everything from the municipal election to reopening the East Hants Aquatic Center was a huge project this year, taking over the Sportsplex, which we've been talking about this evening. We had a new wastewater treatment plant brought online in Shubenacadie that was something that was very different from the old wastewater treatment plant. So there was a lot of human resources and learning that had to go on with that. So council did invest in 6 new positions in 2024 and made one part-time role a full-time role. So with those new positions, we added functionality to our services. We added capacity in our services and some new services. So we now have, for example, the protective services role, which is really day to day from my position. That new protective services officer is doing a lot of things that I was doing day to day. So you know, all those relationships and the management of contracts and whatnot. And then we also added things like our climate sustainability coordinator, and you're going to start to see reports and planning coming from that function as well soon. So lots going on. Probably from an HR point of view, the recruitment was really the topic of the day for 2024. We had 16 full-time equivalent recruitments last year. We'll get into that a little bit. And anyone who's ever done recruitment knows that that's not just an ad in the paper and a couple of interviews. It's quite an extensive process. And it doesn't stop with the recruiting. We've established quite a good onboarding process at East Hants as well. So that involves everybody in the organization sort of embracing that new person when they come in and teaching them about all the different elements and aspects of the organization. So 16 recruitments was a lot on top of the number of recruitments that we did for seasonal and casual. We also have focused our efforts. We have a new internal equity, diversity, and inclusion committee, and we've got a group of folks right now working on the overall municipal plan for equity, diversity, and inclusion, and anti-hate. That is a requirement from the provincial government under the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act. So council will see the first draft of that, we hope, in March. And that's been quite a significant investment of time to get that done. We also have the results in for our most recent employee engagement survey. Sorry. I've got the results. I haven't had a chance to go through them yet. deeply, but you know, still in a very favorable position from an employee engagement point of view and across the board in the organization. So that's good news as well. So we do also, for those counselors who have just joined us this year, one of the big things throughout your strategic plan and throughout your what you'll hear me say throughout is we need to be succession ready. So we need to be doing the succession planning, professional development. We've got 10% of our workforce who are eligible for retirement in the near future, or within the next 3 years. And we'll see some of those numbers. So succession readiness is a huge thing for me right now. It has been for the last few years. We've just seen a raft of retirements, and we'll see another whole slew of folks in about 6 years or so. So being succession ready means getting ready long before folks walk out the door. And we do that to make sure that the services we offer to the public can be offered seamlessly, so people can transition in and out of the organization and we don't have a break in those services. So one of our main goals is to not to have people who don't want to leave the organization. Sometimes in retirement, they just say, I've had enough and I'm leaving, but we don't want those folks who we've put a lot of resources and energy into leaving. So building that corporate culture and work environment where employees are engaged is really important to us, and council has supported us in that over the last number of years. And I, as CAO, truly appreciate that, because I couldn't do my job if I constantly had people leaving the organization. Making sure that the compensation and benefits package is fair and competitive, and then again, that planning for the future. So those are the three sort of primary objectives that we have in our HR, and everything else in this report that you'll see kind of feeds up into that, into one of those three objectives. So just some quick stats. We currently have 96 full-time equivalent staff, 3 roles currently vacant, or we have recruitment underway, is a project officer in corporate services, an IT systems analyst in corporate services, and the community recreation programmer in Parks, Rec, and Culture. So those are on our list to be filled, or are in the process of being filled. And then we have one role that was, as of 2024, was vacant, but it's since been filled in 2025. So that's the wastewater operator. There is a list there by department of the positions that are in each department. And these are full-time equivalent positions. So you'll see sort of the growth in some of these departments, and you can tie to it why that would happen. So in our infrastructure and operations, we've had some growth in our water, wastewater area, as well as engineering, parks, recreation, and culture. We've done the programming and taken on the Sportsplex, which we have one additional full-time employee there at this point. Planning and development, we've had some building inspector positions and some other capacity in planning. And then corporate services, those 2 positions that I just mentioned. We haven't had a lot of change over the last 3 years in finance or the CAO's office. And you'll see this year, that's where the focus is, to get 3 additional positions spread out over those 2 offices. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Our casual staff complement, we hire a large number of staff for casual staff and seasonal staff. So our recreational programming, tourism, Parks, Rec, and Culture, and the Parks Department, those kind of folks we bring on either casually or seasonally. Currently, we have about 70 casual staff at the East Hants Aquatic Center, and that's been a massive restaffing of that since the facility opened again last July. And at the Sportsplex, we have about 30 casual and term staff, again, in those leadership roles, but also in customer service and custodial cafe staff, those types of and the operators. And then last year we had a seasonal staff of 22. So that would include your parks operators, tourism, all those folks. So, and our programming staff. Last 25 years that I've been here, we've probably, I wouldn't say we've doubled, but there's certainly a lot more going on with your parks and recreation and whatnot in the summertime. And then our full-time staff complement has grown as we've grown. And it's been measured to the extent that the services that council wants to deliver, I think, have been delivered quite efficiently over the last number of years. So as far as employee demographics, this is where it gets interesting. I think everyone will remember sort of that great resignation in 2021. So we've, we've looked at the how do we get our generally longer service employees to sort of get that succession ready for the less service employees, if that's a way to describe it. So with all of the change we've had, we have about 56% of folks who have been here less than 5 years. And that's pretty significant. There's a lot to learn when you come into municipal government and delivering the services we deliver. So 56% of folks who have been here less than 5 years. And, that is certainly higher than we've seen it in a long time. The average age of our employees is about 43 years old. That's been fairly consistent over the last number of years. And we currently have 4 generational groups in the workplace. So we have a table here that looks at the number of folks by generation and by age. So the Gen Y millennials and the Gen Xers, we're still here, still hanging on. But that's sort of this Gen X group is the group that you're going to start to see over the next 6 to 12 years start to exit the organization through retirement. And what a great segue. Our retirement statistics are always a little bit frightening for me because when folks retire, a lot of knowledge walks out the door. So there are 6 employees eligible to retire with an unreduced pension. So 6 folks could decide today that they're going to leave and retire. Some of those folks have indicated their retirement. So we do have at least 2, possibly another one who has sort of said, today's the day. And then 4 employees who will be eligible to retire within the next 3 years. And then within the next 10, you've got 15 employees, and then 2 who have actually already retired and are working with us as a second career. So those folks are, sort of could decide that they're done working at any point. So as I mentioned, we did 16 full-time recruitments in 2024. And we conducted 22 seasonal recruitments in 2024. We also had some interns and some co-op students. Incredible value for money when we are able to get students to come and work for us for either a sort of a 10-week term or a 4-month term. Incredible value that we get from those. It is more work. With certain respect, like you have to get ready for them and make sure they have good work when they get here, but the amount of work that we benefit tremendously from that. And last year we did get just under $13,000 of summer job program revenue. When we look at retention rates, we're at about 89% retention rate, which means that employees stay with us for a minimum of 2 years. And what's more impressive to me than an 89% retention rate is we only have a 5% voluntary turnover rate, which is about half of what the industry average is. It's the industry average across all organizations is about 11.9%. So that tells me that our folks who are here are happy. They're staying, and we need to make sure that we continue with that. You'll note back in 2021 with that great resignation, we did have a blip, but even then we were still fairly close to that national average on a good day. So I think that speaks volumes to sort of the investments the council is making in our staff here. I'm not going to go through this whole table. These are sort of anyone who's interested in where those recruitments were. This table tells you by department. I'm also not going to go through all of the activities in 2024. It's there for you to read. I've mentioned most of them, I believe. So I'm just going to scroll through those. Anyone online who wants to stop and look at them, they can pause that. We get into 2025. So I mentioned that there are 3 positions in this budget. We've gone through those when we went over the business plans. One is the finance coordinator. One is the finance administrative support clerk. So council has already approved the finance coordinator position be included in the budget. That position has been hired for. The finance administrative support clerk, that clerk is really needed from a growth perspective, looking at the increase in people who are looking for service around tax but it's, water accounts, customer service in general, reception duties. What we find is one of the front desk positions really needs to be focused on more back office clerical work, and then bring someone else in to help with that front office work. So those are the 2 positions proposed for finance. And my office is seeing an increase of 60% administrative support. Primarily that role will be to work with our HR staff, the increase in that on administrative side, as well as supporting me when it comes to organizational needs that I have as far as, event planning and staff events, communication with staff, all of those things that from what I've seen in the survey, staff are looking for more of, and I just overall need more support in my office for those things. And then the other 40% of that new position would be in corporate services. So we currently split a position, and the intention would be to have a new body that would work in the corporate services department. So that person supports economic business development, real estate, public safety, procurement, and then Adam is the director of the department. So I missed information management in there as well if they needed that. So again, we currently have 60% of a position in corporate services and 40%, which is the 40% that I currently have in my office is the position that supports council, does all the council minutes and meetings and whatnot. And then as we look for this year, as we come up to the 1-year anniversary of assuming operations at the East Hand Sportsplex, we'll look to finalize the number of permanent, seasonal, and casual staff that are required to operate the facility, and look at doing some of those recruitments for some of the permanent positions over there. So looking at the overall structure in the organization, you have seen throughout the budget document on each individual table what each individual budget, what the full-time staffing level is. The market provision from last year is the amount of money that was spread across all departments for market review. Your market review adjustments, that's for this year. Sorry, the market provision comes off, the market review goes on. So that's your total amount of money that was sort of spent on staff last year, are these 3 top buckets. Then we have the 3 new positions that are in the budget this year. And then this year we have, as I mentioned, when we did the business plans, So market provision, that's sort of your standard CPI. We don't do standard CPI, we do a market review, but that would be what most people would think of as cost of living allowance. And then your salary increments and adjustments are those folks who aren't at the top of their scales, their salary scales, and are getting those performance increments every year until they get to that top of the scale. So when you look back at the number of the 56% of our 5 years or less, most of those folks would be included in that. So full-time staffing, again, one of your bigger expenses in the budget. Those total costs for this year would be 8.7 million in this operating budget for full-time staff. So in 2025, we look forward to what we're going to be doing, much of the same. We'll be looking at the employee engagement survey in depth somewhat. We'll also be looking at the accessibility plan and that diversity and inclusion, both the internal and the external, and again, doing the salary review. We're always looking at our HR policies, but this year we'll be particularly looking at them with that equity and diversity lens. And you'll see that in your plan that we put forward in March. And then looking to the future. So we continue to have succession planning and talent management, diversity and inclusion. You're going to have a new strategic plan in the next probably 5 or 6 months. So once we get a new strategic plan from council, we'll need to look at how our human resources align to that. And for those of you who are new, sometimes, if we have opportunities, if somebody leaves and there's an opportunity to sort of change things around a little bit, once we have a new strategic plan, we'll do that. So those things, once you give us our mandate, we'll have to figure out how to get that done within current budgets or come back to council and see how you want that to be done. And then, of course, we're always looking for technology-based solutions that help us do things better and more efficiently. We do have an HR system that we know we can use more. Unfortunately, it takes the same 2 HR people who are busy doing all this stuff to get that configured on some of the new stuff. So having that extra admin support in our department to help with recruitment will really help us move those things along. And then, of course, our health and safety is the most important piece of our human resource department. And it really doesn't stop at human resources. It's across the board in our organization. So just making sure that that is still front and center and that, our people who are our most important assets go home safely at the end of the day is critical. So there's a conclusion here, basically wrapping up. I can't stress, we have an amazing group of people. Our team is phenomenal. Do we have issues? Yes, of course we do. But we work on them and, we do those employee engagement surveys and I get a lot of really great information from those. And as soon as budget's over, I'm going to dive deep into the last set of results. I've read it a couple times and we'll start a plan on how we can change things or improve things or make things better for folks that are spending their days with us. So I'm absolutely confident that with the budget we've put forward, with the business plans, and with those 3 new resources that we have, that we will absolutely execute on your plans this year and deliver the services that you expect us to deliver for those in East Hants. So, Madam Chair, that is the 2024-2025 Human Resources Report.
Thank you, CAO. I'm just looking across the screen here. No, Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, thank you, Chair. Thanks to the CAO for this report. I've read it entirely and listened to you present it here tonight. I totally agree. The people that are working at the municipality are a great asset, and my experience with them is the service and the quality of their work is exceptional. And you can see it in the projects and we'll be talking about, I guess, the capital projects next, you know, the work that they churn out, plus the day-to-day stuff. But notwithstanding that, I have a few questions that I hope I can ask without causing too much problem. I'm just wondering, how do we measure productivity of our staff? Is one question I have. Or is that a question is that too big a question to ask here?
How do we measure productivity?
Not the hours they work, but the work they do in those hours.
Yeah, I think that comes back to sort of the way that your strategic plan is laid out is not the same as you would see sort of in a corporation.
Right.
And we don't have the measuring piece is what's missing in, you know, we don't have set KPIs. We don't get to that granular level in your own operations. What we do is it's basically we measure based on the output of work, and each individual manager is responsible to make sure that that output of work is happening. And we have those conversations with folks if it's not. We know what people's priorities are, and we know when they get them done or they don't. So we have those conversations, but we also have to recognize in our line of work that we don't control our own work plan, you folks do. So there's a lot that if you set out to measure, you know, you probably would say, well, we didn't meet it. Well, we didn't meet it because there was all, you know, 6 other things that landed on our plate. So we don't have KPIs for each individual employee that we measure. We do that through our day-to-day operations.
The other question I have around HR is, I think there was mention in this report about possibly needing new space for additional employees in the future. Are there any opportunities to work from home? Or I see you're using the Sportsplex space. Are there other opportunities to reduce the amount of real estate we need to have for that?
There are. So, you know, in the age probably before COVID, when we sort of realized that we, you know, people can work from home and be super productive from home, we had, you know, cubicles or offices. What we've done since then is, you know, folks still have cubicles. A lot of our bigger offices that people had, we've turned them into 2 folks working in the same office. And I would say taking a minimalist approach to office furniture and whatnot, so that you can have 2 people in there comfortably, because we do have folks who work from home 2 days a week, and they can sort of stagger what days they work from home so they don't have, you know, they're not both in the office at the same time. There is 2 anchor days that people have to be in the office. You know, everybody should be in the office if they can. So that's kind of how we've been dealing with it of late. We have just cleaned out some of our storage. We have a set of rooms up on the top floor of the Lloyd Matheson Center. So Alana staff have been working on clearing out those rooms and taking some of the recreation storage stuff over to the Sportsplex. And we'll look at using that space for, up to this point, it's been meeting rooms and the election office and some storage. It will remain our record storage, but it doesn't have to remain our, you know, recreation storage. So as we grow, that space will become part of the equation. We've done things like, I don't know if you've been on the 2nd floor or not lately, but there's a little glass office outside in the reception area now, because planning folks used to use one of the offices to meet with the public. So it was like the building inspectors would meet with the public, and well, that's a perfectly good office that we needed for a staff person. So we moved that we created a meeting hall basically in the hallway with some privacy. And so we're doing things like that to try and make some more space, but eventually we'll have to look at the space needs of the organization, sort of bigger picture than that.
Right.
I call
Like I
it
know
knitting
I don't
space
know.
together so far.
I don't know if government can operate this way, but I know like some corporations where they had 100 employees and had 100 workstations before. Now the employees are not in all the time. They still have the same number of employees. They have 30 workstations and they
Mhm.
share the workstations. They just come in and
Yeah.
plug in their laptop and they
Yeah.
work there, and they have a central meeting room if they need to meet with somebody. But that's reduced their real estate needs.
Yep, and that's
Yep.
called hoteling.
Yep.
And we could get to that, but one of the things that I struggle with as CAO is, how departments are staffed. And when people come into the municipality, there's an expectation that you can talk to somebody.
Right.
And that's what people expect. So when someone comes in and says, I'd like to talk to someone about roads, then somebody needs to be there. And that is one of the challenges with having people work from home. They're absolutely working or they're
Right.
out in the field, but people being there is important in this day and age still. There may come a time when nobody needs to talk to someone when they come in person, or we just get the public where they're to the point where, well, if I want to talk to someone, I'm going to make an appointment to see them and I'll go in and see them on Tuesday or Wednesday. But to this point, sort of the mandate I've always had from council is we want people to get service when they show up. So that's one of the things that we struggle with when people work from home, but we're working
Well,
through it.
these other organizations, they do have, like a third of their people in all the time
Mhm.
type of thing. They just don't have them all in all the time.
Right.
And that's, so my only thing, my last point is, I'd like for us to look at any ways that we can improve efficiency. And I don't want to beat on staff or anything like that. I really want to take care of staff just the same as you indicate in this report. But I'd like to even get staff's input, and I don't know if we have incentive policies that we incentivize them to, pay incentives for them to identify efficiencies and ways that we can be more economical. I'd be open to something like that. That's about all the comments I have.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Deputy Warden McPhee.
Get myself unmuted there. Thank you, Chair, through you to the CAO. With the new position, you're saying 60% HR, 40% other duties. Do you have someone now? You say you have 2 people that help you with HR. Are they dedicated 100% to HR? So that's all they deal with is.
Yes, we have two HR people. One is the manager of HR, one's an HR officer, generalist they call them. So they do all of HR and they support the managers and any HR that they're working through. If there's performance management issues or anything, they support all of the departments with those things. And we would provide them with some more administrative support, like, calling people for interviews and photocopying the things for, that stuff that seems minor, but it takes up a lot of energy and effort.
Yeah, it takes a lot of
That's
time.
not all this new person would do in my department, but that would be a role that they would play.
They would play, yeah. So you're not really saying some weeks, and they could obviously possibly do 100% HR support
Right.
work. Yeah. So
Yeah.
no, my concern was, did you need another 100% person? But it sounds like you're all right with that. Yeah,
No.
and it'll help out everybody. Yep. Okay, thanks. That's everything for me.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, y'all pretty well gonna know what I'm gonna say, but I'm not taking away from staff, the quality of work. I think we have good staff. But what concerns me is this budget cycle and the last budget cycle, that's a increase of 12 staff people. That has a definite effect on the tax rate. And I'm not just sold on this 60-40 split there. I think we could really get away with that and go with the other two. But You know, my concern's always been the number of people we're putting in there, and I know what I'm gonna hear. I'm gonna hear, oh, if you wanna grow, we gotta have this, we gotta have that. Yeah, but, that 12 positions is concerning to me, and I'm just not sold on this 60-40 split. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Rhino. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the HR report, I didn't really see a section designated for how many positions are one deep or high risk positions. That is my greatest concern when it comes to our staffing is that life happens, things can happen, and I do know we have some people that if they're gone, there's nobody else to do their job, and then the residents lose that service or we become in some dire straits. So uh, that is to me, the greatest operational risk in my mind is that we could possibly lose service through any type of life event, whether it be illness, whether it be early retirement, change in situation, like you never know. And that is something that I think in a future report that we're going to need addressed and to be talked about so we can understand what areas of of the municipality are at risk for servicing in the event that something happens. I do know we try to cross train people to fill in, but our people are doing a 100% job already. If somebody goes down, you can't ask somebody to do a 200% job all the time. And so that is something that I think moving forward, we really have to focus on and look at for the future. I mean, we're in a good place now where we have a lot of our recent hires are like, been in for 5 years. There's some opportunity possibly to grow and cross train, but I definitely want to make sure that when we get into situations where something goes down, municipality is not kind of over the barrel and looking for a way out too quick. Thank you.
For you, Madam Chair. I think if COVID taught us anything, it taught us that. And some of the investments we've made in human resources over the last number of years have helped us in some of those high risk areas. So, for example, your development control, we've got another half a position that does development control work. They do half development control, half planning. So Leanne, who you see present, she's sort of Kelly's backup for development control now, whereas before we really didn't have that. We've gotten some, obviously things like payroll are critical. That's why council has put that other position in place. That'll be our backup for payroll. Our engineers, we used to have one project engineer. We now have more than that. So those types of projects could continue on if somebody had a major life event. So those kinds of things, we're in a much better position than we were, say, 5 years ago. But there are still certainly some risk positions that, we do have contingency plans, but like you said, people already have their jobs. So then you have to start prioritizing of what falls off the plate and what stays on. So those are decisions we talk about a lot. And I think we've closed some of our gaps, but we have gaps left to close for sure. Tracy, our human resource officer, actually has a chart of those high risk positions and where we need to focus our efforts on some of them. So.
If I could just continue, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think understanding those risks and those possible areas of vulnerability, definitely if we had a little more insight on those coming into budget, I think we'd understand the HR report and some of these things a little bit better and just beyond what we get here. But no, I'm all for ensuring that our people need a work-life balance too, right? We can't expect people to do 2 and 3 full-time jobs and expect them to stick around. That's just not feasible, and we want to make sure our people are healthy inside and outside the office and are mentally resilient and healthy in that regard too, because a lot of them do face the public every day, and when they do face the public, a lot of the times it's not a good day for the public, which is why they're there. They're upset. So they're dealing with people in situations where, emotions run high, and that can wear down on some people. So I just want to make sure that everybody is well supported. I do know we have an amazing staff. There's a great network. There's a good culture, but just understanding that we have vulnerabilities that we might need to address sooner than later, and hopefully we can plan for those vulnerability gaps to be closed without having to react to one. And that's it. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam Warden, can I just comment? Do you need to take the chair or?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I would just like to comment on what a couple of counselors have said, but just from what Counselor Perry just said about, a healthy work culture. And I think part of that, while I do support some working at home, I do think that part of that culture is the departments working together in office. And I know that they do that a lot. I would hate to, I wouldn't like to see that go too far the other way. So that's just my, my comments on, a lot of work culture happens within.
Make sure that if we have to have, group meetings or bring people together, like everyone's in the office those days, and you sort of have more hallway conversations and more of those
Yeah, and
conversations
while
instead of
working
happen.
at home can be good for your attitude towards your job and your healthy mental health, working in the office can be as well. So that's an important aspect as well. Okay,
should-
let's.
If I could, Madam Chair, I should just note too, like when our folks are working from home, our IT department has us all suited up with, we have our phones on our computers. We have Zoom chats amongst colleagues. Like it's really not, you're gone are the days where you're at home isolated from everybody. If a customer calls my phone and I'm working at home, my computer pops up and says, "You've got a phone call. Would you like to answer it?" So, we do have a lot of great technology in place to enable that.
Well, and that's good. And I'm glad to hear that we're putting that technology to good use.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I don't see anyone else to speak. If that's everything for your presentation.
That is, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the budget adjustment with Wade Tatry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just going to bring up the file here. Find it. Oops. Okay. I presume everybody can see the operating budget file that I've shared. So I just want to start off by saying at the January 30th
Can you
meeting.
bump that up a bit, please?
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So at the January 30th meeting, when we started the budget meetings, we had provided a draft operating budget for 25-26 to council. And that's our starting point, of course. But during our budget discussions, council has had discussions and made some decisions on some matters. And also staff have noticed a few things in that draft document that should be adjusted as well. So I just want to take a few seconds to go through where we're at in relation to those adjustments at this point in time in the budget process. Now, I want to reiterate, though, that none of these adjustments will have any impact on the proposed tax rates or, the bottom line, because they're all kind of ins and outs. So first off, just talking about the general tax rate itself, the first item is we had in the draft budget some expenditures for the Sackville River floodplain study, and that were being funded through reserves. But as you've heard, apparently the province is going to be doing that, so we don't need that in the draft budget anymore. Then council made a decision about Butafish beautification grants, and we're going to increase that by 11,000 and fund that through the general contingency reserves. I'm going to let Scott or Adam talk about this in a moment. The physical security. I'll just finish the rest of the items first. So. Council also made a safe grad decision in relation to the general government grant for $7,000 and fund that through the general government grant reserves. Then council also made a decision in relation to the Elmsdale Fire Department increasing the levy there by 2 cents. And that's really just from our perspective, it's, money in and money out. And the same thing is for Lance, 2 cents increase as well. And again, that's revenue in and revenue out from our perspective. So no impact on the bottom line. There was one other issue that has come up, we noticed in our draft budget, is that, and it relates to the urban service rate. Again, no impact on the bottom line, but you'll recall there was discussions in council in relation to easements that need to be acquired in relation to the Highway 214 wastewater force main. And a decision was made by council, I think it was in January, I believe, and a motion was made to provide $300,000 for that. Now, the draft budget that you presented on January 30th only had $150,000 in that draft budget. So we need to increase the draft budget by 150, and the amount comes from the obligatory reserves for that. So no real impact on the bottom line. Those are the adjustments that we have so far to date. And when we get to a point where council, is ready to make a motion about the operating budget, we would reference, the draft budget and these adjustments, and to bring us to where we need to be in a final result. Now, there are a couple of other items, I think, at this point in the agenda tonight that we probably should take the opportunity to discuss. One of them is I've been communicating back and forth with the two councillors from the Uniac districts in relation to the Uniac recreation tax figure that's applied. Now, you recall that there's been some district boundary changes recently. So there's an option for, if the councillors in those districts want, to expand that recreation tax to all of the properties that are in those two districts, District 8 and District 9, and thereby increase the revenue that's brought into that recreation fund that's being set aside by just over $3,300 a year. So I'm not sure if the councillors for District 8 and District 9 want to speak to that and say if they would like that to proceed with the 25-26 draft budget or not, but that's essentially a topic, Madam Chair, that perhaps they'll want to discuss at this point.
Okay, thank you, Wade. So I see Councillor Perry would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a large number of people currently in that new expanded districts that have benefited from the recreation fund for items that have been done, whether it's for the school where they go to, for baseball, trails and stuff like that. However, at this time, I think as the new boundaries and as the new things get more known by more people, I think it would be good just to keep everything the way it is for this year, understanding what recreation needs will be needed in the new added areas of the districts, so that next year we can have a better idea of if there's projects, if there's funds, and there's things that need to happen in those areas, then they can be active participants in that recreation fund. Unless Councillor Musa has any other thoughts, I think we should just leave it as is for now, and we'll look at it again next year when we see how things play out for the next year in recreation items within the districts.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Musa is indicating he's in agreement to that.
Okay. Madam Chair, can I continue on? There's another subject
Sure.
on this. There's actually another issue, but I actually think the CAO might want to talk about it at this point in time, and it's with regard to the commercial tax rate that we currently charge, and I will let her take it from there if she's there.
Sure, I'm here.
She is.
So Madam Chair, as we started to work through our budget process and start to look at some of these fire department rates that are increasing and whatnot, I was having a discussion with our economic and business development folks, and the commercial rate is not proposed to decrease in this budget, but a lot of our larger commercial areas, if the 2 fire department rate increases go ahead, will see a significant increase in their all-in tax rate. Your general commercial tax rate, 1 cent on that rate only raises $22,000. Not only, but it's fairly small in comparison to your residential rate. So council may want to give staff direction on whether we want to reduce the general business rate by 0.5 cent, as you are with your residential rate, or even, with it doesn't cost a whole lot to reduce it by even 1 cent, or maybe even the 2 cents that they're seeing, even out in areas where, they have the 21 cent area rates for fire departments. They're seeing that commercial tax rate can be quite a burden. Now, they wouldn't be seeing an increase if the rates aren't going up, but council has sort of tried to keep that commercial rate fair over time, and just thinking out loud with our folks in economic and business development that a 1 cent reduction for $22,000, which we could fund from the surplus this year and it would be absorbed next year, would probably be a good, healthy message to your business community this year.
Okay. Thank you, CAO. First to speak is Warden Rolston.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Warden.
So is the suggestion that we wouldn't charge commercial the 2 cent fire increases, or that we would reduce the commercial rate by something to mitigate for the? I just want to be clear here, because I think that the fire departments, when they requested the increase in the rates, would have been figuring on all of the assessment in the areas paying those rates. And if we're talking about reducing the commercial rate, I'd have to talk about that a little more, because every reduction we give commercial costs residential more, if you get my drift. And we're not looking at reducing the residential taxpayers' general rate or whatever by anything to make up for the fire department levy increases. So I'm not sure you quite have me there yet. Maybe a little clarification, but anyway, those are my questions. I think I understand that you're gonna put the 2 cents on the commercial businesses, but you're proposing that because we're doing that, we're going to reduce the commercial rate by 0.5 cent, which I know it may come out of reserves this year, but at the end of the day, in future years, in order to reduce that commercial rate, the residents are going to have to pay more. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Tingley.
Thank you, Chair, and through the chair to CAO. Since the residential was also brought up, I'm going to ask about the residential as well. How much would this reduction that we're considering for residential impact the average resident? And how much would this reduction impact the average commercial corporation in the East Hants?
So, through you, Madam Chair, my battery is going to die and so if I lose you, I'll be back. I guess my question tonight was, if you want to consider this, we can bring back the tables and if you want to look at that on Tuesday at executive committee, if it's something you want to consider. If it's not, then that's fine. We won't bother doing the work to do the analysis for a commercial reduction. I know we did last year. We brought the information to last year, the year before, to council. We can do that again. I just didn't want to go through that exercise without if it was
that's not really my question. I'm just trying to understand what the value of this is, because it looks like we'll give you a break now and we'll charge you later, because we're going to have to pay the expense for the fire department somehow.
The expenses for the fire department aren't part of so they will get 2 cents on their fire rate. It will apply to the general rate and to.
I understand that, but that's
commercial
just
rate.
moving, but that's just moving money around a bit as well. Like we're upping one to reduce another.
So.
And I'm pretty sure that the municipality needs those funds for expenses they are either incurring now or will incur in the future. So I'm just wondering why we would make, I'm wondering how much of a difference it actually makes to the residents or our commercial customers. And if it's almost like psychological pricing, like it's not, it really doesn't have an effect on them, maybe $15 or $30 a year, but it has an effect on the municipality. But if that's not the case, that's not the case, but I'd like to know what we're talking about.
So a reduction in commercial of 1 cent is $22,000. So it's like 1/10 of a reduction of 1 cent in the resident.
Lost her.
Yeah.
If I can, Madam Chair,
Right.
we don't have those numbers at hand, Councillor Tingley, in relation to figuring out what that $22,000 is going to mean to all the average businesses out there or the individual homes. We can probably throw something together for Tuesday if council's interested in doing it, but we don't have those right at the moment.
Well, I think it's very important.
So, just continuing on with, the economic business department's concept here is that, the fact that those areas impacted for the business sector by 2 cents on their whole assessment is a negative impact from a business perspective. And the concept that they were putting forward was perhaps council might want to consider a 1 cent reduction overall, and that would mean $22,000 overall to the revenues brought in for the municipality.
And that's fine. I'm just trying to understand, like, what the value of all this is to everybody involved. Like, my rough calculation for the GTR on homeowners was about $15 per homeowner, and $121,000 to the municipality.
$22,000.
No, for homeowners, not commercial. I don't know what it is for the average commercial. It's 22,000 overall for all the commercial, right?
Yes, and that's what we're talking about, a 1 cent possible reduction for commercial, period.
Okay.
Only commercial. And that's slightly over 22,000, period.
Right. Okay.
Nothing. Yeah.
I can't ask it any other way.
I don't think I can either. Sorry.
Oh,
We can
Well-
try to get the averages for Tuesday if, per business and per, what that dollars might mean per household, but I don't have them right here right now.
Okay, is that everything for now, Counselor Tingley?
That's it for now. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I look at this and I look at the amount of money that raises is, not a significant amount for the municipality. But I also have to be very cognizant about what's happening in the world right now. And a lot of our commercial industries here are exporters. So when you look at the impacts that's going to be happening to their businesses over the next, 18 months or whatever, however long it takes for all these situations to, level out, it's a show of good faith. I mean, these are the commercial businesses are the ones who every time that there's a fundraiser, they're the ones who are donating items for that fundraiser. The commercial businesses and local businesses are the ones who are donating things to a lot of the nonprofits, Work in Kind. I think it would be a very incumbent upon us to take it seriously, do a review, and look at possibly showing a good gesture and reducing it. And the other thing is the commercial rate affects more than Lance and Elmsdale. You're talking about a fire rate and you're talking about reducing it because of a fire rate. I don't believe it needs to be reduced because of a fire rate. I think it needs to be reduced because everybody, if the businesses aren't here, there's nobody to work, there's nobody to live in the houses. It's a completely different type of cycle when you have employers in your area, and you need to support those employers to support the growth, to support and help offset the cost of areas that have, various services, various assessments, various population densities. And I do believe as things move, and we've seen in the municipality, a lot of those commercial developments are pushing further and further out throughout our municipality, and it's going to be a benefit to all. I don't believe taking 1 cent or just saying we will match whatever reduction is done for the residential rate is something that we could look at. But I do believe we have lowered the residential tax rate every year for the last number of years. And if you look at the history, we've kept the commercial rate steady. And I believe it is time, especially with what's going on in the world, that we look at supporting our businesses, supporting the economics of our area, our region, going forward by at least showing good faith of trying to reduce their rate a little bit. It is not a big impact on our bottom line, but it could be an impact on them as an individual business. That's what I have to say about that. I look forward to a report, or if this is going to come back to committee, but I am 100% behind reducing the commercial rate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 1 cent raises, did you say 22,000?
Yes.
Okay, I see heads now, I didn't hear, okay, all right.
Yes, yes.
$22,000. First of all, I'll talk to, you're saying we could take this from a reserve for this year. Well, I'm gonna agree with the warden, it wouldn't have an effect this year, but if that continued down the road, it would have an effect, and we would pick it up the next year and the next year and the next year. So I'm not really sold on that. I do believe, maybe it's been quite a few years, but we did reduce the rate a couple of years in a row for that commercial rate, and I'd just be interested to find out when that was that was last reduced. I think Councillor Perry called it as it is. It's just a gesture. $22,000 is not going to make a hell of beans to these businesses. This 1 cent. It's all it is a goodwill gesture. But Councillor Perry's spoke on the tariffs and how when the exports are going to affect the corporates, same could be said for the residential. This has got these tariffs or possible tariffs are going to have great consequences to the residents of our area who are struggling now. So, the gesture is a gesture and it's fine, but really, we need that business. We'd hold the rate. We'd hold the rate the same as it was, and I think we go from there. I'm not interested in going in and having a report on $22,000 for the commercial rate because to me, it's not going to make a hell of beans. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and question to Mr. Tatry and staff. I'm curious about the impact of helping out small businesses and commercial enterprises in general. But, we're through the conversation, we're addressing two potential impacts on homeowners' residential rate in the future. And for that reason, to keep it simple, I just wanted to weigh in with my support for having some, call it a cost benefit analysis or just some extra information provided to sort through that a bit more. So I'm very curious, but I'd just like a little more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, I find it a little bit difficult because I've been sitting around here as many years as I have. And maybe because I've been here when we purchased land to build the Uniac Business Park, and we purchased land to expand the business parks. And we always operated on the caveat that we are trying to attract commercial assessment to East Hants to relieve the pressure on the residential tax rate. And we're still nowhere near that 80-20 split that we'd like to have. And I do have sympathy for businesses and what may happen depending on what happens with the tariffs. But whatever happens with that is going to affect everyone. There will be residents who will lose their jobs and perhaps their homes. So I don't think you can pick and choose and say who's going to be hurt now or what can we do to help folks. But I guess kind of where I'm at is if our commercial rate is a fair rate, and I don't think right now I'm at a point where we don't know what the future is going to bring. And I have voted for reductions in the commercial rate in the past, but I'm not there at this particular time because at some point in time, I think if we're going to continue to invest the money that we're investing in economic development and in attracting businesses to try and relieve the pressure on the residential tax rate, then doing something that amounts to little more than a goodwill gesture towards commercial businesses. Because really, if it's $22,000 across the municipality over every business in East Hants, it's not going to be a lot of money per business. And I think I know what Councillor Tingley was trying to get at. On average, how much is that going to save a business? So, and I know we have businesses with great variances in their value, but I guess right now I'm kind of stuck on this page that we're trying to attract economic development to relieve the pressure on the general tax rate. And so we're not proposing a great decrease on the general tax rate or a great increase. And the status quo on the commercial rate is kind of where I'm at right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also interested in the report, and that report should be included in with the jurisdiction scan, because after the email I saw from Wade about what West Hants charged, the service area, they have different tax rate for commercial. So and it's much lower. So for Mount Uniac and the part of West Hens next to Mount Uniac, there would be $1 in difference in general tax rate between us and them, like not $1, probably 70 cents. So I would like to see on the other side of the municipality, like on Halifax side, if they do the same thing, if they charge the same general tax rate all over the place, or I don't know if I understood wrong the West Hens tax, but I'd like to have some more information.
Thank you, Counselor. Is that everything, Counselor Musa?
Yeah, if somebody can put it on a screen and probably explain something about the West Hens and the comparison between West Hens taxes and the East Hens.
Okay, so that's something that you're looking for in this report that some of the counselors are hoping to have? Okay, thank you.
That's
next-
that's if we agreed on a report, but if no report, I'd like to have it now if there's no report coming.
CAO, is that possible?
Just to answer this question, may just a history here on the rates. So in 2016, we had 271 was the rate. 2017, we dropped it to 266. 2018, it went down to 261. 2019, it went to 260. And in 2023, 2024, we dropped it to 257. So there has been sort of steady decreases going down. And again, counselors, it's just to take a look at the information if you want that. If council wants a report on the commercial rates, then we would absolutely include some of that information from the jurisdictions around us as part of that report.
Okay, next to speak is Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that basically what Councillor Perry said, I feel I'm on the same page with him. I think it's a goodwill gesture. And especially with this tariff war, what kind of position are we going to be facing in next year's budget 10 months down the road? How's that going to affect the economy, what these are? We can't really, no way to predict that. So a small little decrease like that now shows that we're supporting the commercial businesses here. Maybe it will help make a decision for another business to move in, but basically that's all I have to say. I'm fine with the reduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to speak is Councillor Rhino.
You're muted, Councillor.
There. Thank you. I think what the CAO was saying about the reduction in those rates over the years, in the last 10 years, if I think that she said within the last 10 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops in that commercial rate. So I think we've been more than fair in trying to, attract business and give them a break out there. So I'd be interested to see how much the tax rate went down over those same 10 years. If you want to compare, let's compare that way too. So I think we've shown adequate drops in these rates over the last 10 years. So numbers speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay. Seeing no one left to speak. Oh, okay. Just looking at my agenda here. Okay, so no one left to speak. Our next,
Madam Chair,
that's
I was a late
everything.
entry there.
Oh, okay, sure. Go ahead, Counselor Hebb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I knew we reduced it last year, but over the last several years, we've reduced it every year for quite a while. And that's quite a substantial decrease we've done over commercial. And $22,000 is not going to make any difference on any of the business when you advertise it over the whole municipality. So I think we should leave it as status quo. I don't think we need to reduce it. We don't need to increase it. And I really don't think we even need a report to come back. My honest opinion, I think it's just a lot of staff time that we don't need to have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So I'm wondering if this point, if we should be, go ahead,
Counselor Mitchell has his hand up.
Counselor Mitchell.
Counselor, you're muted.
I was just looking through the binder and I'm looking at page 32 and 33 in the overall review there, and it has the breakdown from the residential tax rate trend from 2017 to 2025, and also the commercial tax rate trend.
Can you put your mic down to so we can hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm looking at the binder from on page 32, 33, and it has the trends for the tax rates, residential and also commercial, if they wanted to look through them. The residential rate, which was asked back in 2017, was 0.859, and the projected one now in 2025 is 0.795 for the general tax rate. And the commercial one was in 2017, $2.66, and it's now down to $2.57. So you can look and see the trend. Those are just my observation looking through the binder to listen to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Counselor Mitchell was looking at the same table I was looking at, and I look back at 2017 and what the split was in commercial versus residential, and how much more commercial has come to our area since 2017. And you know, it's if you're showing you're willing to work with businesses, they're going to relocate from a higher area. I believe we're positioned. I think that we need to keep that trend going. So I am going to put a motion forward that we reduce the commercial tax rate by 1 cent in this year's budget. I so move.
Second.
Okay, moved by Counselor Perry, seconded by Counselor Musa. On before the motion, Counselor Dixon.
I don't have much of a voice here tonight, but I was gonna just speak the opposite of Council Perry. That we stay at the status quo with what's going on in the world with the tariffs and everything like that. I think we should hold off for a year before we make any changes and review it at that time. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I was on before the motion, but I am speaking against the motion too. For, in that I just did some rough math, and we've reduced the commercial rate in that period of time that Council Mitchell referred to, I believe, by around 9 cents. And in the comparable period for the residential rate, we've reduced it as well, but only by 6 cents. So I do think we're being fair to our commercial businesses. Depending on what happens in the wider world, and we don't have a crystal ball, maybe when we're back here by next year, maybe we'll be looking at reducing that commercial rate. But as I said before, I'm not there yet. I think our rate is fair, and the purpose for our whole economic development portfolio and department and everything is to bring commercial to this municipality. And the reason for that is to try and get to an 80-20 split and to try and alleviate the pressure on the residential tax rate. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Next to speak is Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just I want to add to the word in the tax rate for the commercial is 3 times the residential. So if we want to be fair, the 9 cents should be 27 cents, not whatever it is. So 6 cents should be 18 cents, not the 9 cents. So everybody see it on different scale. It depends how many commercial you have in your business. And if you look, most of the commercial tax come from two districts, District 8 and Elmsdale District 2. So they're outnumbered, but if we want to help support our businesses, we should all look at every part of the municipality, not at your own district. Thank you.
Counselor Tingley. You're muted, Counselor. Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, just a quick point. You know, this talk that we're having about tariffs and this amount of money going to attract commercial business to come here, like this is just a nominal decrease. And for all the reasons that the warden talked about, I agree with her points. If we had more information to know exactly what we were talking about, maybe consider it further, but it seems such a minor amount. This is not going to help any commercial businesses with the war on tariffs or cause businesses to move in here. This is just politicizing the thing.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
And I will wholeheartedly disagree with Councillor Tingley. If you look at the neighboring municipalities, if they're raising their rate by 2.5% to 3% of their commercial, and they see that we are lowering our commercial rate, businesses now are looking for the best place to go. The only reason the Mount Uniacke Business Park has been a success is because we did for years lower that rate, and it's attracted people to come out. It's as everybody else around us puts their price up, if we show we're putting our price down, that's how you attract business. That's how you move towards the 20%. The other side of that, it's just, if you go back and you look at what our commercial split was in 2017 and what it is today, and what we've been doing has been working to reduce that or increase that. And it's only going to grow if we keep supporting that. We have no problem. If you look at the dollar value, yeah, it's $22,000 in this year's budget, but that rate might be attractive for another $20 million business to come to East Hants. And, those are the things that make the biggest changes. Because you know what? If another $20 million business comes to, Elmsdale Lance area, that's going to help the Sportsplex. It's going to help everybody else. So it's not just about what this is going to do. It's a trickle down effect. And like Councillor Musa said, as we grow our commercial, everybody will benefit. So, and he brought up a great point. When you start at 270 and you go down 9 cents, that's a lot lower percentage reduction than going from 85 to 80. I'll just wait for the vote.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Yes, thank you. Still speaking against the motion, because I think what attracts businesses to East Hants is far more than our commercial tax rate. The cost of our commercial lots, the cost of the lots in our business parks and how competitive they are, the need to be near highways, but without needing to be perhaps in Burnside or in the city centers somewhere. Those are things which attract businesses to East Hants. It's more than just a cent on the commercial rate. And I think that's simplifying it too much to say that that's why our business is growing. I think the majority of businesses that locate in East Hants, they do a lot of demographic studies and they do a lot of research before they come here. And while the commercial tax rate may be part of it, I don't think it's the overriding factor. That's just my opinion. We'll see how the vote goes, and thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Rhino.
There, got it. And not to belabor this going back and forth, but if I took the CIO's figures down right, 271 down to 257, and if you do the math, and my math, it's 14 cents, not 9 cents. So we have decreased that. If what she told me is correct, and I did the math, it's 14 cent decrease in roughly 10 years. So that's more than adequate that we've shown, but we're interested in business. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, seeing no one left to speak, there's a motion on the floor. What is your wish?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. So all those in favor, raise your hands and keep them up, please. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've got 3 votes in favor. All those opposed, raise your hands. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8 votes against, so the motion has failed.
Madam Chair, could we have the names of those that spoke in favor or voted in
Yes.
favor?
If you can raise your hands, please, who voted in favor? In favor. So that would be Counselor Perry, Counselor,
Counselor Dixon, I don't
Oh,
think you
whoa, whoa,
voted.
whoa, sorry.
yeah, Counselor Perry, Counselor Musa, and the third one was Counselor, Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you.
Alder.
Oh, okay, so if that's everything from the budget adjustments, the next, actually, what time is it here?
Move to adjourn. It's 9 o'clock.
Yep,
Second
9
that.
o'clock. So, okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning?
All right.
And we are adjourned until Tuesday. There was some topic of conversation about the next meetings, but I guess we'll discuss that on Tuesday night.
Madam Chair, it's not Tuesday night. The next
Tuesday
budget meeting
night.
would be Tuesday during the day at Executive Committee. We
Oh,
have
of course. Okay, Tuesday, great. Okay, meeting is adjourned. If you'll let us know when we're off camera.